Grieving or not grieving, grief holds so many truths and lessons that we can all learn and reflect upon. Stay tuned while I talk about 3 things that I've learned this month while working as a grief therapist. Join our Grievolution by subscribing to the channel, turn on the notifications, and like this video with the thumbs up below so that YouTube will know to send this video to more people so that we can do grief together. We are not meant to do grief alone. Hi, my name is Jo McRogers. I'm a social worker who has worked for decades in supporting people and their grief. So many times I have had moments of deep reflection and deep learnings that extend even beyond grief into who we are and what our nature in the world is. Once a month, I'll be sharing these videos that will bring to you my gathered wisdoms from all of the lovely people I sit with and my own personal learnings from my professional education. So join us as we explore what I learned this month. Number 1, the first learning that I want to share with you from this month was that I was so excited to learn the term for something that I have experienced and felt and witnessed and supported for people, and it is called regriefing. Now I'm going to use this term all of the time because it so beautifully captures part of what grief is all about. Regriefing is the term that is used to explain re-experiencing the same grief from so many different vantage points, perspectives, or developmental milestones. So my example of this on a personal note is when my father died when I was really young, I mourned the loss from the age that I was at. And then as I grew, I then began to mourn the loss from the fact that I never got to have an adult-like relationship with my father. Years later, I then mourned the loss that my husband, my partner in crime, never got to know my father. And then as I had children, I mourned the loss that he never got to know my kids. And then again, as my kids grew older, I mourned the loss that they never got to know my father as well. Each one of these instances, I now know I have the term, they are called regriefing. Each one of those experiences might have required a new tool, a new skill set, a new process in order to be able to integrate the new grief that I was experiencing from what was a past loss. This term regriefing really applies to children as well, young children who have yet to have their developmental milestones happen. So when a child is 4 and experiences a loss, they're processing it on a 4-year-old's developmental level. That can be a whole different experience when they are 14 and when they are 44, to have the same loss reprocessed with each developmental milestone. When the same grief tends to find us over and over again in different places of our life or different milestones, people will often worry that this means that they haven't done their grief work well, that they haven't healed from their grief, or that they are still stuck in their grief. But the term regriefing is meant to remind us that if we are in fact experiencing it from very different places in our life, we are actually doing our grief work, because grief doesn't leave us. Grief needs to be reworked, and hence we have regriefing. The second thing I wish to share with you this month, I am calling retail grief therapy. It is real. I have had many people recently talk about the fact that the whole world of online ordering is wide open to them. Often when we're grieving, we can find ourselves at home. We can wish for the isolation. We can hate the isolation. But our online retail therapy is always available. So many times people will find they're sitting at their computer, mindlessly scrolling, sometimes starting to look for something that they actually need to buy, and then finding out that they've now bought 4 or 5 other things that they had no intention of buying. Some of the people have even told me that they have packages and parcels showing up at their doorstep that they don't remember even ordering. So online grief retail therapy is serving a massive purpose. So it's important to look at what the role of that online grief retail therapy was. Grief teaches us that we have so little control. It bursts that bubble that we tend to believe that we have control over our lives. So really, let's think about what is it that someone is seeking with online exorbitant, extravagant ordering. Generally, people will be online, they will have a thought, their credit card is readily accessible, it's a few clicks, a few checks of boxes, an order will arrive, and the next day or several days later, there's a parcel at your door and the reward is large. That speaks to control. It speaks to a need of having power, control, and influence over our worlds. Online ordering retail therapy fits that bill so beautifully, so easily, nobody even needs to see it. So if you are finding yourself ordering again and again, please know that this is far more likely a sign that you are grieving than it is any indication of a weakness that you have. This is grief. The third thing that I have learned this month and spent some time talking about is grief and sex. Sounds so contradictory to so many people. It's as though they are dirty little secrets that are spoken in whispered voices, as though people are in a confessional when we are in our therapy sessions. Many variations on the theme are possible. So why does this show up so often? Well, grief is a physical, emotional, and cognitive experience. Sex is a physical, emotional, and cognitive experience. When the two of these become layered, things can get complicated. You might lose your sex drive completely. You might gain a jet engine powered sex drive. You might not have your sex drive impacted, but what happens is that you start having a whole range of emotions that are newly associated with your sexuality, your sex life. If your grief has brought you new filters to your libido, to your sensuality, to your sexuality, please know that this is a normal sign of grieving, though it's not often spoken of. So if this is true for you, please find a trusted professional who knows grief so that you can have a safe and secure place to process what this all may mean for you. If any of these three things that I have learned this month resonate with you, please leave a comment below. I would also like to know if you'd like any of these three areas explored more in its own video. Please let me know. If you have found this video to be helpful or interesting, please like it below with the thumbs up, and also please consider sharing it with anybody who you think may have an interest in grief or may be working at processing their own grief. And as always, when doing your grief work, kind thoughts, kind words, and a kind heart are going to be what support you in your grief. I look forward to meeting with you again. Thank you so much.